Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and it looks like the news doesn't stop. Yep, in the game files, Golgfag Maneater was found. We've actually got a very rough model for him. It's a little bit different to his actual tabletop model, mostly the shoulder pads, but the helmet is very much the same. This is actually quite important. And some DB details here, which is like the porthole movement, attack animations, all this stuff, which I think is just some very rough outlines. Now this is pretty cool. You see, there's been some rumors for a while now that Cathay is going to be the next DLC, and just the Monkey King alone wouldn't be enough because not everyone is into Cathay. So it does look like the rumors of Cathay versus Ogres might be a thing, which is actually quite exciting because Golgfag Maneater is actually quite cool. This would allow for the Ogres to also have 3 legendary lords, which would be really nice, and it could allow Creative Assembly to give a minor rework to the Ogres, because the Ogres are fine, they just need to fix up a few things, which we'll talk about in a future video. I want to do a little bit of research to see what could be done here. And yeah, you know, have the Ogres actually working like a game-free race, because they were the pre-order incentive for Warhammer 3, but unfortunately, they're lacking a little bit. The Ogres are also a faction which don't have that much missing, so this could allow them to actually complete the Ogres fully done, like literally they don't have that much missing, and then move on to other races and factions. It's going to be quite funny to see the Ogres get a rework before Norska, but hey, yeah. Now, before anything, why is this character interesting? Well, Golgfag Maneater is pretty much why the Ogres are so well known to be fairly decent mercenaries. All the man-eaters name themselves after him, and yeah, I mean, he's been around for a long time. He was in the Dogs of War book back in the day, and eventually when the Ogres started becoming their own fully fledged thing, he was also in there too. He is like one of the best mercenaries in the Warhammer Fantasy universe. I mean, he's still an ogre and you shouldn't really trust him too much, but yeah. I really like the idea of this. I think this is super cool because the Ogres already have this mercenary mechanic. It's the whole thing with the contracts, which could get reworked and be a little bit better, more fleshed out. This could be the time to see it. In 6.0, when we finally end up seeing possibly the Monkey King, it looks like the rumors are true, actually, alongside the Ogres. And it would make sense to add in some really fleshed out contract mechanic, because that could then pave the way for the eventual Dogs of War DLC, as I'm starting to believe all these rumors might be 100% true. This character could literally be anywhere. He could have like a really extra fleshed out contract mechanic to make it very unique for him. And you know what would be kind of cool is if, and I know this is possible, right? It's been done by modders before. You could choose your start position. You start the character, you've maybe got like 4 or 5 different locations that you could actually start in, and you pick and that'll just teleport you there. I feel like that would be really fun for the Ogres to give you some variety. Obviously, you have the Mountains of Morn with Greasus and the Border Princes for Skrog, unless Skrog gets moved, because Golgfag Maneater is really, he's there, right? Like, actually, I believe there's a story which centers him being around the Border Princes. And like I said, this could finish up the Ogres. We could get the remaining laws of magic for the Slaughter Masters and the Butchers, because that would be kind of nice. It's always good to have a variety when it comes to laws of magic. Then add in the Bruiser, so this is a melee-focused hero, because some people do want that. It's always quite important to have variety when it comes to your rosters. Since there's not that many units and stuff for the Ogre Kingdoms, it's a very small roster, to be honest. What could be done here is that the Bruiser could boost up your faction. It could be a support hero alongside just being a melee hitter. The Yetis are a missing unit, so this is something that would work in a very similar sense to, well, trolls, I guess, you know, give them some frost attacks too. The idea is, and this is what they were in the tabletop, is they were a shock trooper, very similar to trolls, but they also had some negative effects in regards to enemy attacks and so on. So it'd be kind of cool to see that here. The Thunder Tusk is still missing, which is really weird to me. Honestly, I expected this at launch because it is essentially just the same rigs and animations, well, barring the head, obviously, as the Stonehorns. But yeah, this is another big type of creature. Its purpose on the tabletop was to do damage and also had some frost attacks, like the Yetis, but being like the super big version, essentially. I'm a big fan of this. It's got a really good model too. I mean, god damn it, it's so cool. And the thing is that that's it, right? That's the last of the stuff since the 8th edition book. There's like variants for Noblars missing, but those aren't really that important. And this is why I imagine that they'll do Ogres with Cathay, because Cathay we're expecting like a mini race pack of sorts, right? We're expecting something big for the Monkey King because loads of Monkey Warriors, Tiger Men, stuff like that, right? We've already had the Tiger Men leak, so it makes sense to just go, let's finish up the Ogres. We can't really do them as a big pack. They won't be getting 6 units, so it's literally now or never. Now, if they do want to pad this out a little bit just to give the Ogres a bit more love, which would be lovely, by the way, what we could see is the implementation of mounts. You see, back in 8th edition, a lot of characters could not mount up, which was a massive shame. Warhammer the Old World has now allowed it for the Stone Horns and the Thunder Tusks to be mounts for pretty much every single type of Lord and Hero variant, so it would be kind of cool to see that. It would also be even better if they allowed it for Mournfang and Rhinoxes too. They would have to ask permission from Games Workshop, I imagine, but I don't think they'd say no. I know Creative Assembly watch my videos for these types of things, so here's a little thing. If they say no, just say, look, it makes logical sense for them to be able to mount up. It would be nice to have a full cavalry-based army with the Ogres, a lot of Mournfangs, they're good for the memes, and just the Stonehorns, and it'd just be cool, right? Cool factor is super important here. I know Games Workshop are very problematic with these things, though, so I'm not getting my hopes up, but it would just be nice. Another thing is, obviously, there's the Blood Vultures, which is something that's been known. It's pretty much attached to the models, but it would be kind of cool to see a flying unit, something like a flying skirmisher for the Ogres. They don't need this. I wouldn't be heartbroken if we didn't get Blood Vultures, to be honest, because not everyone needs a flying unit, especially since we know that the rig and the animations from the Carrion just kind of flesh them out and not make them dead birds could be used there, but yeah, again, not really a deal breaker if they don't get it. Now, there are a number of missing characters, most notably 2, which a lot of people did want. Bragg the Gutsman is one of them. To be honest, he could easily fit in here as some sort of legendary hero, because the Ogres could do with one. Really, every race should have at least one minimum, so that way you've got something interesting. He could be an assassin-type hero, which could work quite well. I mean, he's still going to be melee-focused, because he's an executioner, but you know what I mean, right? He could move a little bit quicker, and he could just be really good at taking out characters. The other is Gark Ironskin, which, yeah, a lot of people want, mostly because he's got a metal Rhinox, he's really strong, he's allies with the Chorfs, but I don't imagine him coming this time soon. Some people might say the FLC Legendary Lord, but I really do think that if it's going to be Ogres versus Cathay, that's going to be Li Dao the Fire Dragon. So what could be done here is, in the future, I've been suggesting this for a while, and I think that Creative Assembly will do it, a character pack DLC, which will introduce a bunch of characters, Legendary Lords and Legendary Heroes, 4 different races and factions at once, no units, just literally, look, these races are done, or near enough, have a bunch of characters instead. These characters would have their own factions, unique mechanics, and just fleshing out the world a little bit more, which is already feeling a little bit, yeah, it's feeling a little bit full. I'm leaving this to the end because it could just be something very doable, but also I'm not expecting it. We know that 6.0 is changing up the map, and this is something quite important, because if it's the Monkey King, they're going to have to open up the Mountains of Heaven, which is right on the southern tip of Cathay. Could it be that this might be the time that we'll see the Kingdoms of Ind opening up properly, not just a bit for the Mountains of Heaven, but literally just opening up for manufactions and putting in Golgfag Maneater over there? It could be very possible. We know those areas are due to be opened up eventually, and the fact of the matter is, it needs to start opening up sooner rather than later. Even if we don't get Ind and Koresh as race packs, we need to start seeing those areas, or else everything is just going to be more congested. Obviously, we're expecting a High Elf DLC, we're expecting a Slaanesh DLC. They need to be having some variety in terms of start positions, because that means that you'll get more replayability. Now, despite the title, I actually don't think this is a leak. Yeah, I know, this sounds weird, but I think Creative Assembly left this in the game files intentionally. This is to drum up hype for a potential next product. Remember when the Shadows of Change stuff leaked, right? That was the Dogs of War stuff. It's kind of to give hope for the future that, yes, there's still some stuff planned, and hopefully things get back on track for it. Whilst the Thrones of Decay stuff has been really well received, I think they wanted to go, yeah, you know, the momentum is here, we're going to be pushing up a little bit further. This also means that the model is done. That means that they're actually starting to texture these things. That means that they're likely doing the first internal testings. That means that the build that we saw recently, Jericho, that popped up randomly on the Steam DB, is the next DLC. that confirms my theory. I think then that means that we're likely going to see this DLC around August. They must be further ahead than anticipated, so maybe we might go back into the whole DLC every 4 months. They did say in a previous blog that DLCs would be smaller. 1 versus 1 makes a lot of sense here, as that was a lot of the rumors going on lately too. But what do you think about this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I like the idea of just finishing off the ogres and being done with them. Well, not done because they'll still be playable, but you know what I mean. And then just moving on to the other factions that need to be finished off. It's a shame that Norska's not next, but the ogres are actually fairly well liked. So it does make sense to make the game-free race actually feel like a game-free race. If you're new here, might you consider subscribing, as it doesn't really cost you anything and it just helps the channel out. Really, it does. It gets the algorithm kind of pushing a little bit. We've been growing so fast lately, it would be kind of cool to hit 100k this year. We're just so close now, man, and I can just feel it. But with that being said, have a great day, guys, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.